Imagine being fully conscious, highly intelligent, and able to understand every single word spoken around you.
Right, just absorbing everything.
Exactly. You're absorbing the world like a sponge, but, to the outside observer, you are entirely invisible.
Because your body just isn't cooperating.
Right. Your body writhes uncontrollably, your hands are clenched into tight, spasming fists, and your head just rolls back.
It's a terrifying thought.
It really is. You have zero way to communicate that you are actually in there. And because of that, medical professionals look at you, turn to your mother, and casually throw around terms like mental defective and imbecile.
Yeah, words we would absolutely never use today.
Right. And I mean, this isn't some dystopian horror premise. This was the actual waking reality for a boy named Christy Brown.
And that reality is basically the starting point for today's deep dive into excerpts from his profoundly moving autobiography, My Left Foot.
Yeah, an incredible piece of source material.
It really is. So we are looking at Dublin in 1932. This is a time and place where, frankly, severe neurodevelopmental conditions were fundamentally misunderstood.
Oh, completely.
The default medical approach to a child born with severe cerebral palsy was, well, institutionalization. Just hide them away, keep them out of sight.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the mission of our deep dive today is to really explore how a brilliant mind escapes that ultimate physical prison.
Which is just a massive journey.
It is. We are going to look at the transformative power of a mother's defiance against the medical establishment and ultimately, the massive, really painful sacrifices required to finally find one's true voice.
That context of 1932 Dublin is so crucial here. Christy was born into a working-class family that would eventually have, get this, 22 children.
Wow.
Yeah, 13 of whom survived infancy. So it's a bustling, chaotic, loud environment. And for the first years of his life, the medical consensus on his condition was just a brick wall of hopelessness.
Right, they gave him no chance.
None. At 12 months old, he couldn't even sit up without a literal mountain of pillows. But his mother vehemently rejected that bleak prognosis.
Which was a radically subversive choice for the 1930s. I mean, she treated him as a conscious, thinking human being.
Yeah, she refused to hide him.
Completely.
Yeah.
She refused to relegate him to a back room when guests came over, which was, sadly, the social expectation back then.
And to understand the gravity of this, we really have to look at how Christy later described his own internal state.
The glass wall.
Yes, exactly. He talked about being trapped behind a glass wall. Sensory input was at 100%. I mean, he heard the jokes, he felt the tension, he understood all the dynamics of his massive family.
But his motor output was at zero.
Right. The psychological toll of having this sharp observational intellect locked inside a body that refuses to obey a single command, well, it's almost unimaginable.
Oh, the frustration must have been unbearable.
Unbearable. And the tension of that glass wall just builds and builds until he's 5 years old.
Okay, set the scene for us.
So it's a gray December day. The house is cold, the fire is going, and his sister Mona is sitting on the floor doing math on a slate.
Yeah.
And she is using this bright, shiny piece of yellow chalk. Christy is just captivated by the color, and then seemingly bypassing his own broken motor pathways, his left foot suddenly reaches out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. His toes clamp down and he grabs that yellow chalk right out of his sister's hand.
I mean, the neurological implications of that single moment are just staggering.
Right, because of his condition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In severe cerebral palsy, the brain's motor cortex is basically sending chaotic, scrambled signals to the muscles.
Mm-hmm.
For his foot to reach out with intention, grab an object, and actually hold it, his brain had to forge a desperate, improvised pathway right through all that neurological noise.
It was a monumental act of physical will.
It really was.
And you can feel the tension in the room in the book. The entire noisy kitchen just goes dead silent. His mother drops what she's doing in the pantry.
She realizes what's happening.
Yeah. She drops to her knees. She's got tears in her eyes, takes another piece of chalk, and draws the letter A on the floor. She looks at him, totally tense with anticipation, and says, "Draw it, Chris."
Which just sets up an incredible battle between his mind and his body. I mean, he wants to obey, but his body is actively rebelling against him.
He tries, and he fails. He tries again. He's sweating, he's shaking, he's biting his lips so hard it almost bleeds.
The frustration must be peaking here.
Oh, it's so intense he wants to throw the chalk and just give up entirely. But his mother puts her hand on his shoulder and whispers, "Try again."
And he does.
He does. He tightens every single muscle in his body, channels every ounce of his being into that left foot, and scribbles a shaky, crooked letter A on the floor.
And that single shaky line just completely dismantled the mental defective diagnosis.
Absolutely destroyed it.
From a sociological standpoint, it validated his mother's irrational, stubborn faith. She had been treating him like a sentient being based purely on maternal instinct, fighting against the entire medical establishment.
And that crooked letter A was the undeniable proof she needed. It makes me think of, like, a marooned astronaut.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. Like, you're millions of miles from Earth, your comma's been dead for years, everyone assumes you're just gone. And finally, through pure, desperate effort, you manage to bypass the broken systems and send a single, faint radio blip back to mission control.
Just to say, I'm alive.
Exactly. Someone is in here. But here's the thing. Mission Control knows he's alive now, but he's still stuck on the planet.
Yeah, the mental presence is proven, but the physical paralysis remains exactly the same.
So how does a severely paralyzed boy actually interact with the rough-and-tumble, impoverished streets of 1930s Dublin?
Well, he relies heavily on the brutal but loving inclusion of his brothers. I mean, they didn't treat him like some fragile porcelain doll.
Ew, not at all.
They built him a rusty, broken-down wooden cart that Christy affectionately named Henry, and they dragged Henry the chariot absolutely everywhere.
The anecdotes in the source material about this are just fantastic. They would take him on these neighborhood heists to steal apples and pears over garden walls.
Classic kid stuff.
Right. And in one specific instance, they've just stolen a massive haul of fruit, and a policeman comes walking around the corner.
Uh-oh.
The brothers panic, but instead of running away, they take all the stolen sticky fruit and stuff it right under Christy's cushion while he's sitting in the cart.
It's just a brilliant, almost cynical use of social bias. They knew the policeman would look at Christy's physical condition and immediately assume innocence.
Right. Who's going to suspect him?
Exactly. Who is going to search the severely disabled boy's wheelchair for stolen goods? Nobody.
And it worked. The cop just pats Christy on the head, says good evening, and walks on. The boys actually felt so guilty about deceiving the cop that they left the fruit by the wall later.
That's hilarious. But the inclusion didn't stop there, right?
Oh, no. His older brother, Jim, used to sneak him into the cinema by literally carrying him on his back. His brother, Tony, threw him into the freezing canal for his first swim, just tossed him right in.
And he loved it.
He ends up floating, describing it as this triumphant, exhilarating moment.
It really paints a picture of this chaotic, vibrant childhood inclusion. But we do have to look at the psychological undercurrent here.
Well, that's exactly where I want to push back a little. You would think being included in these boyish pranks, being treated like one of the guys, would make Christy feel normal.
You'd think so.
Wouldn't being thrown in the canal and included in robberies stave off that feeling of isolation? But reading the sources, it seems like as he got older, it actually did the exact opposite.
Yeah, you're touching on a really profound psychological turning point that often happens in the lives of children with severe physical disabilities, usually right around the onset of adolescence.
No, when everything starts changing.
Exactly. Up until he was about 10, Christy was experiencing the sheer thrill of participation. But as puberty approaches, the psychology shifts from participation to observation.
He starts noticing the differences more.
He really does. He starts watching his brother Peter catch a ball with these strong, steady hands, and then he looks down at his own hands, which are just constantly writhing like snakes. The inclusion in the physical world only served to highlight the vast, really unbridgeable gulf between his capabilities and those of his able-bodied peers.
The physical differences become this loud alarm bell he just can't ignore anymore, and this culminates in a devastating moment of self-awareness.
The mirror scene.
Yes, he looks in a mirror on his bedroom wall, and for the first time, he doesn't just see his face, he truly sees his disability through the eyes of the outside world.
He sees what everyone else sees.
Right. He sees the twisted mouth, the head rolling to the side, the spasms. It disgusts him so deeply. He's just so overwhelmed by this physical reality that he reaches up with his left foot, grabs the mirror off the wall, and shatters it on the floor.
It's powerful. He is violently rejecting his own physical reflection because it just doesn't match the capable, intelligent mind he knows he actually possesses.
But, smashing the mirror doesn't change reality.
No, it doesn't. Deprived of physical normalcy, he has to find a new mirror. He needs a totally different mechanism to reflect the turbulent, massive emotions building inside him.
Which is what triggers his transition into art. I mean, he literally trades his toy soldiers for his brother Patty's paint box.
That's a huge shift.
It is. He teaches himself to paint by holding the brush right between his toes. And this is when a woman named Christy Brown enters his life.
She was a medical student, right?
Yeah, a beautiful medical student who comes to visit him. She becomes his first major crush. But far more importantly, she becomes his greatest encourager.
Because she didn't talk down to him.
Exactly. She treats him like a peer, like an artist. She pushes him to enter a children's painting contest in the Sunday Independent newspaper.
And he channels all his desire for normalcy into this contest.
He does. He paints a scene of Cinderella at the ball. He gives her a blue dress, white satin shoes peeking out, and he carefully places little yellow dots to look like jewels.
And the amazing thing is, he wins.
He wins. He gets his photo in the paper, sitting on the floor, painting with his foot. It's this colossal moment of public validation for him.
But we see a recurring theme here in his life. The psychological highs are almost always followed by devastating crashes against the rocks of reality.
The higher the climb, the harder the fall.
Exactly. Art provides a temporary bridge to the outside world, but it cannot protect him from the harshness of human interaction, especially romantic interaction.
Because painting Cinderella doesn't change the fact that he's a teenager with raging hormones.
Right.
He falls hard for a neighborhood girl named Jenny. They pass notes back and forth. She comes over to his backyard. They sit together. They read books. Christy really starts to build this fragile hope.
He thinks he might actually have a chance.
Yeah, he thinks, maybe this is happening for me. Maybe I can have a normal romance. But then the heartbreak hits.
It's tough to read.
Jenny comes to his backyard one day, and she looks at him. And the look isn't love. It isn't even the platonic warmth of friendship. It is pure, unadulterated pity.
We really need to dissect why pity is so incredibly destructive in this context. Empathy says, I am with you. Compassion says, I want to help you.
Right.
But pity is arguably the most alienating emotion you can direct at someone because it implies a strict, immovable hierarchy. It says, I am whole and you are fundamentally broken.
Ouch.
Yeah. When Jenny looked at him with pity, she was stripping away his illusion of equality entirely. She didn't see a potential partner. She just saw a tragedy.
And that single look shatters him. He realizes the art didn't make him normal in her eyes. It just made him a talented novelty.
It's a brutal realization.
It really is. This realization sends him into a profoundly deep depression at age 16. It gets so dark that he actually drags himself up to his upstairs window ledge. He sits there, looking down at the concrete, fully contemplating suicide.
The isolation has gone from a physical constraint to just an unbearable psychological weight.
And the only thing that pulls him back from the ledge is remembering Catriona Delahunt, the memory of someone who offered genuine encouragement, not pity.
But he still needs an outlet for all that dark energy.
Right, because this emotional pain is too immense, too jagged for watercolors. Painting peaceful scenes of Cinderella just isn't enough to process this agony anymore.
He needs a sharper tool.
Exactly. So he turns to words. He starts writing pulp fiction. Wild, violent cowboy and detective stories. Characters shooting each other, bodies in cellars, blood everywhere.
Think about the psychology of that genre choice, though.
Oh, it's fascinating.
When you possess absolutely zero physical agency, when you cannot even control your own hands, writing violent action is the ultimate reclamation of power.
He is venting his internal frustration and impotence onto the page.
Right. He can't punch a wall, so he creates characters who shoot their way out of problems.
Yeah.
It's a vital, really aggressive survival mechanism.
But, survival isn't living. To pull him out of this dark, angry place permanently, his family and supporters organize a trip that radically alters his worldview.
The trip to Lourdes.
Yes, he travels to Lourdes, in France. Now, Lourdes is famous as a Catholic site of pilgrimage, deeply associated with healing waters and miracles. It draws massive crowds of sick and disabled people.
And Christy goes there perhaps hoping for some kind of intervention, a physical cure.
But that's not what happens.
No. What he experiences is a profound cognitive shift regarding suffering. He gets on this plane, and for the first time in his life, he is surrounded by people in significantly worse conditions than himself.
Which must have been a huge shock.
It was. He meets a young girl named Mare who is completely paralyzed and actually passes away shortly after the trip. He sees double amputees, people experiencing agonizing pain.
Because up until this point, his entire universe of suffering had a population of exactly one.
Precisely. Severe disability, combined with the extreme isolation of his environment, had created a kind of narcissism of his suffering, like a solipsism.
He thought he was the only one.
He believed his pain was unique and absolute. But Lourdes shattered that illusion. He realized he was not a unique anomaly cursed by the universe. He was simply part of a vast, global community of human fragility.
It puts his own struggle into a terrifying but oddly comforting perspective.
It makes him feel less alone.
Yeah. But returning home to Dublin, this new perspective doesn't make him passive. He don't just want to be resigned to his fate, waiting for the next life like so many pilgrims he saw.
Right, he wants more.
He wants an active, engaged life right now. And that hunger for agency brings in the medical cavalry. Dr. Collis and Dr. Warnens enter the picture.
Oh, this is a turning point.
A huge one. They offer him something revolutionary for his time, real targeted physiotherapy. But of course, there's a massive logistical hurdle.
There always is.
To do the intense, focused physical therapy required, they need a dedicated, quiet clinic space at his house. The chaotic kitchen with a dozen siblings running around is just impossible.
They need an extension, a backyard clinic room.
Which requires construction. Now, his father is a professional bricklayer. His 4 older brothers are bricklayers.
You'd think this is perfect. They have an in-house construction crew.
Exactly. But the father flat out refuses to build it. He cites the authorities, claiming it's against city regulations to build an extension without permits.
But really, he just won't do it.
Right. He lacks the vision or the will to help his son. So what does the mother do? This woman who already has a massive household of children to run.
She takes matters into her own hands.
She literally goes out to the backyard, drops to her knees in the dirt, mixes the heavy cement herself, and starts laying bricks with a trowel.
It is such a stunning visual of maternal defiance, and it highlights a really crucial theme in Christy's life.
The poetic justice of this moment is incredible. The father and the 4 bricklayer sons are watching from the window. They're watching their mother do their professional, heavy labor job.
And they realize how bad it looks.
They get so intensely shamed by the sight of her laying those bricks that they finally cave, walk out back, take the trowels from her hands, and finish building the clinic room themselves.
Think about this. When the doctors gave up on his mind, she laid the foundation of his mental life by forcing him to draw that A.
Wow. Yeah.
And now, when the father gives up on his body, she literally builds the physical foundation for his rehabilitation with her bare hands.
She is just incredible.
She is the architect of his survival. She physically manifests his future when the men in his life abdicate responsibility.
And once that clinic is built, the grueling therapy begins. But this brings Christy face to face with the greatest ultimatum of his entire life.
A demand to give up the very thing that connects him to the world.
Right. Christy flies to London to be evaluated by a top cerebral palsy specialist, Mrs. Irene Collis. She examines him thoroughly and delivers a massive, terrifying verdict.
The ultimatum.
She tells him, you can be rehabilitated, you can learn to speak clearer, you can gain some control over your limbs. But on one strict condition, you must never use your left foot again.
To understand why this was asked of him, we really have to look at the neurology here.
It sounds so harsh at first.
It does, but think of the brain's motor cortex like a massive electrical power station. When Christy wanted to use his left foot, he had to summon immense, overwhelming neurological voltage just to bypass his damaged pathways.
Okay, I see.
By sending all that intense energy down to his left foot, he was creating what Mrs. Collis identified as sympathetic tension.
Sympathetic tension, right.
He was essentially flooding the rest of his body with neurological noise, short-circuiting his other limbs. It was actively worsening the spasms and rigidity in his arms and his jaw.
Wow. So it was holding everything else back.
Exactly. If his speech or his hands were ever going to develop, he had to cut the power to the left foot.
That makes perfect medical sense when you explain it like that. But psychologically,
It's a whole different story.
she was asking him to cut out his own tongue. That foot was his voice. It drew the letter A. It painted Cinderella. It wrote the pulp fiction that kept him alive.
It was his identity.
It was his entire identity and his only defense mechanism against total isolation. To ask him to abandon it was asking him to leap entirely into the dark.
He's basically being told, to gain the world, you have to voluntarily amputate your superpower.
It requires an unbelievable level of trust and courage.
He has to regress, right, to become entirely helpless again in order to finally move forward.
But he takes the leap.
He does.
He agrees and he stops using the foot. And because he can't use his foot to write, and his speech is still too garbled for most people to understand, he decides to write his autobiography by dictating it to his 12-year-old brother, Eamon.
Which naturally introduces some friction into the creative process.
Oh, it is deeply comedic. Christy is 18 at this point. He's read a lot of Charles Dickens, and he thinks that's how serious writers are supposed to sound.
No.
So he's dictating these massive, absurdly complex Victorian-style sentences to a 12-year-old who is just struggling to spell the basic words.
Yeah.
He even titles an early draft, Memoirs of a Mental Defective.
That title is such a fascinating defense mechanism, though.
How so?
Well, he is leaning into the clinical insults, almost trying to control the narrative by owning the slur before society can use it against him again.
That makes a lot of sense.
But the Victorian writing style is still a shield. He's hiding behind big words.
Exactly. He's hiding. So Dr. Robert Collis, who is a writer himself and the brother of the London specialist, comes to check on Christie's progress. He asks to see the manuscript.
And reads it.
He reads this terrible, overly verbose, heavily Victorian draft. But beneath the agonizingly formal prose, he spots a glimmer of raw, undeniable talent.
He sees the potential.
He does. Dr. Collis looks at him and gives him the best literary advice possible. He says, drop the act. Stop trying to sound like a 19th century aristocrat.
Just be yourself.
Right. Use short sentences. Use the words you actually know. Paint with a pen the way you used to paint with a brush.
Dr. Collis is basically forcing him to find his authentic voice. Not an imitation of someone else's voice, not a defense mechanism, but his own raw, lived experience translated directly onto the page without apology.
And what's beautiful is that as he's finding his literary voice, he's literally finding his physical voice.
Through therapy.
Yeah, through the physiotherapy at the new clinic his mother forced into existence, he starts learning to speak clearer. He does exercises like blowing soap bubbles to learn breath control.
It's this incredible parallel of finding his literal breath and his literary breath at exactly the same time.
It really is.
Pulling all of these threads together, Christy Brown's journey transcends a simple medical triumph. Overcoming a severe physical disability was really only half the battle.
For sure.
The true narrative is a relentless process of tearing down internal walls of shame, of rejecting the safe, alienating distance of pity, and finding the profound courage to speak in his own authentic voice.
Even when it meant sacrificing his greatest crutch to do it. The left foot saved him in the beginning. It broke the glass wall.
But the left foot was holding him back from experiencing the rest of the world in the end.
The tools that ensure our survival rarely ensure our growth.
That's a great way to put it.
Which brings us to the core takeaway for you listening today. You know, human potential isn't clean or binary. It's messy. It requires immense sacrifice. And the real healing almost always happens in the murky, terrifying waters of our own psychology.
You have to face the hard stuff.
Christy Brown had to give up the one thing that made him special to finally become whole. So, as you go about your day, I want you to mull over this final thought. Think about your own life.
What is your left foot?
Exactly.
Wait.
What is your left foot? What is that one coping mechanism, that one defense strategy, or that one crutch you rely on so heavily that it might actually be stunting your overall growth?
That's a tough question.
It absolutely might have saved you in the past. But is it holding you back now? If you were told you had to completely abandon your greatest strength to finally achieve true freedom, well, would you have the courage to do it?